When I was a kid, time travel stories about changing history were really hard to get into because of a concept that I'd always get caught up on. Okay, for the sake of demonstration, let's take a garbage human from the pits of history that caused mass suffering. I can't use the usual go-to example, so instead let's use insane Roman Emperor Caligula. Say you learned about Caligula in history class, and you were like, he seems like a bad dude. He caused a lot of harm to a lot of people. So, because of this, you become motivated to invent a time machine. You study hard, you learn what you need to do, you accomplish scientific breakthroughs, and invent the world's first time machine. You use this time machine to go back in time and kill baby Caligula and prevent his reign of terror, changing history for the better. Before I go forward with this, I just want to say that this isn't based off of any kind of science or reality. This is more just a fun thought experiment for time travel stories. So baby Caligula is dead. You instantly poof out of existence because now this version of you shouldn't exist because history won't play out this way. The world would proceed on its new path, and then we arrive at the new modern day, and young you is in history class. But young you would never learn about Caligula. Since he died as a baby, here's where the problem comes. This means that young you won't be inspired to make a time machine, meaning grown-up you will never go back in time to change history in the first place. This means that there's nobody to kill Caligula when he's a baby, which means he would actually grow up and become a crazy Roman emperor that you'd learn about. History would fix itself. This means that you would learn about him in history class. So you would invent the time machine and you would go on to kill him as a baby, which would alter history and create a world where you never killed him, which means history would fix itself, which would inspire you to go on and change history. But then that inspiration for you to invent the time machine would vanish, which means you never changed history, and over and over and over and over again. What would happen? Would reality just crash? Would the universe be eternally trapped in an infinite cycle of you going back in time, changing history, fast forwarding to the present? You end up not going back in time anymore because history's changed, which means that history would need to play out normally since you never interfered in the first place, which would then go on to create, and you get the idea. You doom the universe to an endlessly repeating 2,000 or so years of history constantly resetting itself over and over and over and over again. It's what bothers me about stories where someone goes back in time to change history. What you could say is that you'd create a new timeline that would run parallel to the normal timeline. And see, I think that's a cop-out. I think that's an easy way to get out of the issue of altering your own personal history. Hopefully that made sense, because this sounds like gibberish, what I'm reading right here. I barely understand how I wrote this out. You know what I'm a big fan of, though, in time travel stories? I like time travel stories where it's less about altering history and the fear of altering history, and more about using time travel as an excuse to take you to foreign places. Books such as H.G. Wells' The Time Machine uses time travel not as a way to visit historical events, but to travel so far into the future that what we know as the planet Earth seems completely alien. I really like the kind of stories that are so far in the future that we see Earth as a strange and unrecognizable place under the dull red glow of our dying sun millions of years in the future. Now, what about time travel in the real world? So I'm not too versed on the topic, and I won't get into too much detail because, I'm not that bright. But my understanding of the way that the universe works is that, for whatever reason, gravity affects the flow of time. So, if you were to live on a planet with really strong gravity, it would kind of look like the universe beyond our planet's gravity well is slightly fast-forwarded. Watches that are in outer space run slightly faster than watches here on the planet Earth. And that's because of the way our own Earth affects the flow of time, at least here. Could we just sort of hang out near a black hole for half an hour and then return to normal space and see that a few months have passed? To me, this doesn't seem so much like time traveling, and it seems more like you're opting into a fast forward button. What if we actually start using this to our advantage in the future? Suppose humanity goes to space, and we use black holes as a sort of way to cheat ourselves out of long waits. Apple just announced the iPhone 8000, and it'll be coming out in 2 years. Well, 2 years is a long wait, so I think I'll go chill in the orbit of a black hole for 2 minutes, then pop out and hey, 2 years have passed. When you look beyond that gravitational well, it'll look like the universe is fast forwarding. But then if you look around yourself in this gravitational zone, everything seems to be flowing normally. But then, if an outsider looks at you, it'll look like you're moving in super slow motion. The craziest thing about this is both of your perspectives are correct, because the flow of time isn't consistent across the universe. Time flows in different ways depending on how strong gravity is. You're both correct. Time is flowing normally from both of your perspectives. Isn't that weird? I don't know too much about theoretical physics and the rules of the universe, so I've probably already botched that and got everything wrong. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, well, I don't know what I'm trying to say, to be honest. I thought about this in the shower. Time is just fun to think about.